Folks at home, welcome back to the Crimson Oak Pond, and if you're new to this series, we built this 5-acre pond over the past year, and it took us several months to get all of the dirt excavated, and we had to bring in several truckloads of clay, and we also built an island, a dock, and got all the structure in place, and then it took a couple of months to get it full of water. After that, we stocked it with a bunch of bait fish, including bluegills and threadfin shad, and not long after that, we stocked it with these little 2-inch aggressive bass. And we're going to be giving you an update on them here in just a minute and showing you how big they've gotten. And before we get started today, I need to address a lot of questions and concerns you all had in our previous video. And in case you missed it, we added a bait tank out here on the dock and stocked it with a bunch of bait, and one type of fish that we added in there was a goldfish. And we had dozens of comments saying not to put the goldfish in the pond and how much of a negative effect they could have, and all of those were valid points. But I don't think I did a good enough job explaining my purpose for them last week. So the goal for this bait tank is to allow us to start hand feeding our fish every day and getting them to come up around the dock and be more friendly with us. And so my original intent was to feed the goldfish to the bass, and there would be a very small chance that many of them would escape and have enough numbers to repopulate. But once I received the shipment of goldfish, I noticed that they were too big to feed to the bass. So I didn't put any of them in the pond except for the one little guy that jumped out of the bait tank and slipped through the cracks. So there is one known goldfish in the pond, but the rest of them are still here in this bait tank. And so you guys don't have to worry about them doing any damage to the pond. Our plans are now to give them away to people as pets. But either way, I appreciate all the feedback and comments, and thanks for looking out for the best interest of our pond. And check that out, one of the whistling ducks flying over. So a quick update on the pond while we're out here on the dock, and if you look at the bank, you can see how much the water's dropped. And I've been purposely keeping the pond a little low because unfortunately this is hurricane season throughout September and October, and I still have those fears that if a hurricane comes through and dumps a bunch of rain, it could really mess up the pond. So I've let it get low and almost a little bit too low, so I think we're going to turn the well on and let it rise up just a little bit. Alright, we just got the well turned on. Check that out, it's pretty wild how much that PVC pipe has curved around. It's almost making an S shape. That's going to start pumping about 100 gallons per minute into the pond. And I'm happy to say we hadn't had to use the well in about 4 months, and that's even better than I expected through the hottest part of the year, because during May, June, July, and August we had plenty of rainfall, and we've got 10 acres of watershed for every 1 acre of pond, so we've had plenty to keep it full. I'm excited to finally give you guys a sneak peek on a project that we've been working on the past couple of months. You know, we spare no expense when it comes to wildlife out here at the farm. And the goal was simple, and that's to build the ultimate floating duck house for our new family of ducks. But I want to give a huge shout out to one of my co-workers, Nathan, who's the mastermind behind this entire project. And we went way over the top. It's decked out with solar panels, a jacuzzi, an indoor aquarium, a pump house that keeps fresh water flowing out of the pond, a wide variety of electronic components and sensors, underwater LED lights, a landing pad, and last but not least, a duck shower. And you're going to be seeing the entire build and its first day in the pond in our next video, and trust me folks, you don't want to miss this one. Now it's time to feed our two smallest mascots, Tiger and Copper. And Tiger is a tiger bass, and Copper is a copper-nosed bluegill, and we caught both of those out of the pond. And we've been feeding them a combination of golden shiners out of the bait tank and protein pellets out of the fish feeders. And just like Moby, Tiger's really aggressive, and no matter how much bait you put in there, he can never get enough. Look at that thick belly. He's starting to grow up. Alright, we just got a package delivered out here to the farm. It is our glass bottom kayak. Well, it's actually made out of the same thing that airplane windows are made out of, so it's not actually glass. Alright, next up I'm going to be installing the LED lights on the kayak, and this particular model is made to either go above the water or below it. But this kayak is a perfect fit for them because they have this little rivet, and both of those LEDs will slide down in each of those, so we'll keep them inside the kayak. And this is a waterproof battery pack. And that makes it nice. The whole system is waterproof, so you can even use it out here in the rain. And this is our little on-off switch that'll let you toggle through all the different colors. And the color we're going with tonight is green because it matches all of our underwater lights. Alright folks, sun is setting. Got the LEDs on. Looks like they're nice and bright. I'm going to get out here around some of these other LEDs and basically just cruise through the shallow ends of the pond and see if we can see some fish down there. Might go out to the deeper ends. I'm not quite sure how far down this will shine, but we'll be finding out here in just a minute. All right, I got both of the GoPros set up. You're gonna have to excuse the cowboy boots. Been out here on the farm all day, but I can go ahead and tell you this is gonna be awesome. I've already seen some little minnows swimming right there. They're attracted to the light just like all the shiners are. Pretty excited about this little adventure. Let's go. And there's one of the big logs from the old oak tree. Wow, look at that. You got all of those baby ducks that hatched here at the Crimson Oak Pond flying in a V shape. Man, I love seeing that. So one of the things I'm going to do is just paddle around to all of the brush piles. I know they hold a lot of bait and bass, so we'll see if there's any activity around there. So once it got completely dark and everything settled down, all the fish started coming out. There were bass and bluegills swimming all around me. There were times I felt like I could literally reach out and touch them. If that would have been Tiger, he would have taken a bite. And man, I'm glad I brought some mosquito spray because this is a magnet for bugs. Now we got to check out one of my favorite spots in the entire pond, and that's the oak throne. This looks like something right out of a scary movie. Look at all those roots sticking out. So the entire night was pretty cool. I did learn a lot because I would go around some of these brush piles and there wouldn't be much bait there, and others they would be loaded into it. And you know, wherever the bait fish are hanging out, that's going to be where the bass are. I also got to hear the owls hooting out here tonight. The deer did not know what to think of me. But that's been the coolest part of this adventure, being able to sit right here in the water beside all the fish that were raising up in the pond. And I imagine the only thing that could beat this is putting some scuba gear on and actually getting underwater with them. So we may have to try that out here in the future. Guys, I can't express how many mosquitoes are out here flying around me right now. If you're not okay with dozens of mosquitoes on you at a time, then this nighttime kayaking may not be for you. Absolutely going to be wearing long pants and long sleeves the next time we come out. But overall, a really fun experience, and I'm sure we'll be doing it in some future videos. So if you followed along with our pond build series, you know that EcoFlow is one of our biggest supporters, and we're currently powering the Crimson Cabin with a Delta Pro series, which has the solar panel attachment and allows us to convert sunlight into usable energy. And when the sun's not shining, we can use their dual generator, which can either be powered by gasoline or propane, but they've just released a brand new product called the Delta II. And the first thing I noticed about it is, compared to the older models, it's a lot more lightweight and compact. And one last minute addition, I decided to pack the EcoFlow battery pack in here because I've got this AC outlet and I can basically charge those LED lights out here on the lake. So if we get out there and we're having a good time, we won't have to come back in and charge them up. Plugs right in. But I can literally think of dozens of uses for this out at the farm. You can power up TVs, pumps, grills, appliances, heaters in a shooting house, and it can provide up to 1800 watts of AC output, and it only takes 80 minutes to fully charge. And it also comes with an app that you can use for control and also see how much battery power you have left. So folks, do me a favor and go check out the Delta II. I'll put a link down in the video description below. So we finally got some good grass established on the pond dam, and it's time to give it a cut, so I had a guy stop by that has an RC mower. That's right, folks, it's a remote control lawn mower. And I have to say, it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. You just stand somewhere in the vicinity of it and use a remote control to drive it around like you're playing a video game. So some of you may be thinking, why would you ever need that? And if you ever have to cut a pond dam that has a real steep slope, then you'll understand the need for it, because there's a lot of injuries every year where people flip tractors and lawnmowers over, and in some cases even go off in the water side of the pond. So having an unmanned mower really does have its perks and takes away almost all of the safety issues. But I was really impressed with how well it handled the slopes. Those track tires didn't have any issues and there wasn't any slipping. And I'll have to say, I would love to own one of these myself, but they're quite expensive. This particular model can cost anywhere around $60,000. So for me, in the short term, I'll just be hiring this guy to come out. But while we're on the topic of mowers, I gotta give this company Moschio a shout out because they watched the Pond Build series and saw our need for mowing around the slopes and sent us a Flail Mower, and this will basically hook onto the back of the tractor and offset towards the pond slope. And so we're going to be using this in the future to cut the slopes leading down to the water's edge. But I've got to get another rear remote installed on the Kubota, so it'll be a couple of weeks before we can play with this one. Alright, the sun is setting and the underwater green lights are about to come on. So I've been feeding them a couple hundred a night, and you can see the bait tank is doing good. Bunch of lively shiners in there. All the goldfish are out. And let's go ahead and scoop some up for tonight. Let you see what they look like. There's a good look at one right there. But I've been feeding them a couple hundred a night, and I have a feeling that'll go up once the bass start getting a little bit bigger. So we had several people comment in the last video saying that we should just bypass the filter on the bait tank and just pump water directly out of the pond. But I've got a second use for this bait tank that I hadn't told you about yet. And here pretty soon we're going to start tagging all of the bass, and one of the things I've been researching is a fish anesthetic. And basically the way it works is it doesn't put the fish to sleep, it just calms them down. So you can imagine how hard it's going to be to tag a bass that's flopping around and won't stay still. So you basically put them in something like a live well, or in this case a bait tank, and the anesthetic calms them down. You tag them, and then when you release them into the pond, it immediately wears off, and all the fish are right back to normal. So until we get done tagging all of the fish, I'm going to keep the water in this bait tank isolated. But if there's any of you out there that have used that technique, tagging fish, before, reach out to me because I do have a couple of questions about it. And since we got to see the bass eat, now it's time to watch those vicious bluegills eat. And it seems like they're not quite as aggressive as they were in midsummer, or maybe it's just because there's not as many of them around. I've talked to a lot of other pond owners that say sometime around October, November, they'll become less and less interested in the bluegill pellets until next spring. So I was setting my decoys up out here on this dove field, and something keeps coming along and knocking them over. So I got this game camera set up. We're going to see what it is. Maybe during daytime, maybe during nighttime, but something is definitely roughing them up. The first culprit is Al Capone. And next is one of the coyotes. I think he got a little spooked by it. And the deer not really sure why the birds are sitting on the ground at night. Alright, we catch a bass every couple of weeks. It's time to head out and catch one. We're trying to see how big they're getting because we're going to be starting our tagging system soon, where we tag a bass and we start that contest up. So I got the spinning rods rigged up. Let's see if we can catch a big one today. Got him. Oh yeah. Got a nice little largemouth. Pretty green color right there on his fins, but basically here when he gets just a little bit bigger, we're going to start putting him in that tank and that anesthetic, making it where he won't flop around as much, and then we'll go ahead and pit tag him and introduce him to the contest. Alrighty, that's exactly what I wanted to see. Now head on back. Alright, setting up the peanut picnic table again, and y'all know the deal. Peanuts, pistachios, Brazil nuts, pecans, and sunflower seeds. Now let's see what kind of critters come out to eat tonight. First up, we captured a farmer out in the wild, getting some deer plots ready. And you know the sunflower seeds are always going to bring those little birds in. And some bucks wondering how those peanuts got up on top of the table. And here's one I didn't expect to see, the cat we call Whiskers. Usually it's out there chasing the mice around, but not tonight. Another deer stopping by, but they won't commit to eating. And last but not least, George Jones the possum. He's always cleanup duty, and typically whenever he comes around, that'll be the last of the peanuts for the night, because he wipes them out. Now it's time for another full moon night lapse. Let's kick back and listen to the crickets and the frogs. Alright, y'all know how I like experimenting with different food for the wildlife. This one's new to me. It is called G&D Rack Attack, and it's got corn, rice bran, soybean meal, wildlife mineral supplement, and apple flavoring. They definitely like the apples. So we're going to spread some of that out here, see what comes out on camera. And this is one of those plots I keep planted in soybeans and winter peas throughout the year. So the deer use this plot a bunch. I'll be planting it here in the next couple of weeks. It's a real fine powdery substance, so rather than spread it out everywhere, I tried to pile it up because we do have a lot of sand in this area. So I made 2 little small piles. We'll see if they like it. And look who showed up. It is Pepe Le Pew the skunk. And as we've seen in the past, he is not afraid of the deer and will not back down. But as we watch some of these deer clips, I've been getting asked the question a lot about if we're ever going to do any hunting out here at the farm. So my original thoughts were no, that we're not going to do any hunting and just film all the wildlife out here at the farm. But I do understand that with white-tailed deer, they can get overpopulated and cause some harm. So I honestly think I'll leave it up to you. And my thoughts were, if I ever did do a hunt, it would probably be a subscriber hunt where we brought one of you in and stayed at the cabin for a couple of nights, and potentially even letting a kid come in and shoot their first deer or something like that. But I'm not sure about the legality of it or the insurance coverage if someone was to get hurt. But before we even start thinking about all that, leave your comments down below of yes, you'd like to see a hunt, or no, keep it like we've been doing and just letting the wildlife do its thing. But I will have to say I was impressed with the Rack Attack. Normally when we put out a new product, the deer won't touch it for days and are skeptics. But this particular product had a lot of deer traffic in front of it, and especially bucks. So here in a few weeks, we may do a comparison video where we put this beside some apple corn and some other things that we know that the deer like. So every week when I'm watching this nighttime footage, there's usually 1 or 2 times where I'm shocked by what I see, and this is one of those clips. When have you ever seen a coyote chase a little mouse right up to the feet of a buck? And I couldn't really tell right there at the end if he chased one of the coyotes off or if he just ran off on his own. But watch here as that same group of deer and coyotes start moving through the peanut fields. And then right when they get up to the top of the hill, something spooks them. I'm not sure if it was a neighbor or some other wild animal, but the race is on. Here's a quick clip of Sarah getting to hang out with some of her friends. Gotta love it. That's what the farm life is all about. And now it's time to feed Mr. Moby. Alright folks, that is going to wrap up this video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to follow along with the 5-acre pond adventures. You will not want to miss the floating duck house coming up in the next video. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and we will see you all next time.